Professor Tomas Hayes with you. 800-956-7266 is our phone number. Email talkback@sportstalksc.com. On Twitter @SportsTalkSC. Hope you've had a great day. We thank you for joining us tonight. Hope you plan to be with us for the entire 2 hours. Should you leave us as far as the radio is concerned, make sure to follow us on our website, SportsTalkSC.com. You can listen to us, watch us on our YouTube channel, Sports Talk SC. That's available to you on your computer and on your smartphone. And if you can smartcast it to your television, look up here, Pro. You can see the back of your head, just like everybody else can see the back of your head. Our bosses aren't particularly happy about always watching and seeing the back of your head.
Oh, no.
They'd like to know what you look like. They'd like to know where their money is going.
You want to see the patch in my face?
There you go.
Is that what you want to see?
Whoa, you just scared half the audience away.
I know I did.
Yeah. You want to explain what that's about?
I just got a lazy eye.
Oh, okay. Okay. All right. You're doing well otherwise, though.
Otherwise, yeah.
You're not lazy in any other way. The rest of your body is not lazy.
No.
The rest of the body's functioning okay.
Yes, as far as I know.
Jarmart, Jared Rogers Martin, once again behind the bulletproof glass as we come to you from Main Street, downtown Columbia. 800-956-7266. You heard the coaches. It could be the final game of the college baseball season tonight if Florida can knock off LSU. Florida won last night 4-3, building the early lead of 3-0. LSU scored 2 in the 6th to make it 3-2. Gators got a run up in the 7th to go up 4-2. LSU scored 1 in the 8th to make it 4-3. And then with Byrne on the mound to close it out, pitching the last 2 innings, he was able to keep the Tigers off the board there in the final frame, and Florida gets the win. And so you heard O'Sullivan talking about, yeah, we're up 1-0, and you heard Maneri the same thing, but you got Poche going tonight for LSU and Lang set for tomorrow night for LSU. They still feel good about their chances with those 2 guys going. And Florida tonight's going to start a freshman, Tyler Dyson, and he is a guy that he pitched earlier in the World Series. His only start of the season. This will only be his second start of the season. He only lasted 1 2/3 innings, allowed 2 earned runs back in April against Florida State. He's kind of been up and down out of the bullpen for Florida, 4.74 ERA. So this will be a bit of a challenge for him. He did pitch against Louisville in Omaha. He went 1 1/3 scoreless innings when he faced Louisville earlier in the CWS. But now you're going to be facing a guy who is the all-time winningest pitcher at LSU and is widely considered as the best pitcher in the country at this particular point. Poche?
Might be. You only have to tag him once, and that's the key. To Florida. Florida's sitting right there at the precipice. And as I said before, something's got to give. Either Florida wins a title this time, because you just have a feel LSU, you're not going to go to the well every time and win it. And so the odds are against LSU. I know they got the talent, they got the pitching, but the odds are against you.
All right, now to the good stuff. The latest on the USC baseball coaching search. And we'll fill you in on what we know. And this is what we know. This isn't conjecture here. This is pretty much what we know. Kevin O'Sullivan, the coach at Florida, I still believe, from what I know, that Ray Tanner plans to talk to him as soon as the CWS is over to see if he's interested in coming to South Carolina. From the beginning, it was my opinion that it's not going to happen. There's just too many things that would have to be overcome for it to happen. So I still don't think it will happen. John Whittle of the Big Spur, who, of course, we trust his baseball knowledge, and he came around today and wrote the same thing that we've been saying, that now it looks like O'Sullivan is not going to be coming to South Carolina. He laid it on the fact that Florida is still playing and has made it to the championship round, and that sort of changed everything. His feeling was early on, if they hadn't gone this deeply in the tournament, that O'Sullivan would be more interested in taking the job. So I think Tanner's waiting to make the phone call to O'Sullivan to be told no by O'Sullivan. And then he goes to his next list. Monty Lee at Clemson, from talking to sources today, he's had conversation with Tanner over the past couple of weeks about the various and sundry things, but not about the head coaching job, I'm told. That has not been broached. That subject has not been broached. Would he take a call from Tanner if he wanted to talk about that? Probably so. But from what I'm told, you got to remember this. Imani's 2 years into his time at Clemson. He just bought a new house. He's got 2 kids, one going into Clemson in the fall and one going into the Clemson Bridge program. So he's deep into Clemson right now. And I think it would take just an offer that would blow him away that Clemson could not match for him to consider any offer from Ray Tanner if that were to happen. That's what it would take. It would take sort of like life-changing money for him to make that move. So taking him off the list and taking O'Sullivan off the list, you've got Mark Kingston, the head coach at South Florida, one of 2 coaches that we know interviewed for the head coaching job. He did so last week. Got a pretty good record at South Florida, 42 wins this year. Very good team ERA. And then you've got Jim Toman, the former USC assistant, former Liberty head coach, who also interviewed for the head coaching job. I know some are wanting to say it was not for that. Yes, it was for the head coaching job. And they go way back, of course, to their days in the 80s back at NC State when Tanner was an assistant coach. Toman was a player. I think he was a catcher, wasn't he? Wasn't Toman a catcher? Looks like a catcher.
See, I wasn't going to say that.
I think he was a catcher,
okay.
But he played when Tanner was an assistant. Then he became an assistant coach to Tanner there, and, of course, came with him to South Carolina and helped build the program at South Carolina. Was on those 3 teams that went to the World Series, recruited those guys, and recruited some of the guys, many of the guys that won back-to-back national championships. He didn't leave USC until 2008, and he went to Liberty, did a terrific job in 9 years there. For some reason, Jeff Barber fired him about a month after the 2016 season. For no good reason was given except that he hadn't won enough, as if 37 wins per season on average at Liberty was not enough. Then, of course, Jeff Barber got fired not too long after that. I don't know what went on at Liberty. That should not be a stain against Toman. Tom Walter at Wake Forest, I believe, from what I'm told, that Tanner has talked to him over the phone. There's been maybe some conversation there. I don't think it's gone any further than that. Walter, I believe, just signed a new contract at Wake Forest. Seems to be happy there. Chris Lemonis from Indiana, don't see anything happening with that. And I've heard nothing more on a name that we mentioned late last week, Roger Williams, the pitching coach from Louisville. I've heard nothing more on that, which might be, who knows, that might be the one that's starting to, I don't know. I don't know if anything more is going on there. That was just something I heard from coaching circles. All right, that's where we are on that. We'll tell you more in a moment. Okay, back with you. Sports Talk, South Carolina Radio Network. Phil Kornblut, Professor Tom Hayes, 800-956-7266 is the phone number. So that is where we stand with things as far as we know tonight. I think that Tanner's waiting to be able to make a call to O'Sullivan to be probably told no, that he's not leaving Florida. And then he'll move on from there. And it could be, he may have Mark Kingston could be his guy from down at South Florida. You wouldn't bring a head coach in that you don't have much of an affiliation with, unless you're very interested in him, as he did last week. Could be Jim Toman, I guess he came in on Tanner's request. Maybe he came in on his own volition, and the two got together to talk it over. Outside of that, it could go anywhere. This doesn't mean there aren't other people that Ray has on his list that he's talking to. These are just the names that we've run across and have been actively kicked around.
Well, people in baseball circles or any coaching circles will talk to guys and they'll say, well, he talked to so-and-so. Well, he may have talked about him to get an idea of the guy he's looking at. He may not be interviewing that guy. Hey, Sully, know you play South Florida every year. What do you think of that guy over there? Y'all have good, the other sneaky way that people hire people is they hire him. I just need you to consult me for a while. They say, how you like this guy? Well, wait a minute. Are you? And then about the 10th time, are you interested in the job?
That's old Mike McGee's trick. That's how Mike McGee got the job at South Carolina. He was a consultant when they were looking for an AD. He was at Southern Cal. And I can't remember, maybe had he left Southern Cal and was working as a consultant, or maybe he was consulting while he was at Southern Cal. But next thing you know, he's the AD at South Carolina. So
ding, 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 ding.
We'll see what happens. Obviously, nothing's happening today, and probably nothing is happening tomorrow. And this thing could drag on in. If it gets to the weekend, then you've got July 4th coming up, and you have to really wonder if anything will get done before July 4th at this point.
Well, they delayed the vote on the health care bill today, so Ray can delay his coaching search to after the holiday.
Absolutely. All right, what else is going on of interest? Former Gamecock pitcher Tyler Webb is on the yo-yo from Pennsylvania to Yankee Stadium. He was up, he was down, now he's called back up because the Yankees unfortunately had to play second baseman Starlin Castro on the 10-day DL with a hamstring strain, and they recalled Webb from their AAA team in Pennsylvania.
Wilkes-Barre.
What is that? It's a double city. It's what is it?
I thought that was Wilkes-Barre.
I thought there was wasn't there another city involved with that? AAA. Well, anyway, they called him up. They called him up to replace Castro, who's going on the 10-day DL. From Vanderbilt over in Nashville, a couple of players, Tay Daly and Frank Coppett, shot outside of a Nashville Target store last night. Daly's a freshman defensive back, shot in the leg. Coppett, a redshirt freshman defensive back as well, shot in the arm. Both injuries considered non-critical. The shooting occurred after a third Commodore football player, receiver Donovan Tennyson, had his phone stolen in an earlier incident, and along with the other two, concocted what was described by police as an ill-conceived plan to recover a stolen cell phone. Tennyson met up with someone to try to sell his cell phone. Tennyson's cell phone was stolen during the meeting in the parking lot of the Chili's on West End. I know that Chili's on West End. Tennyson told police he noticed his stolen phone was listed online. which is when he reportedly made a fake profile and arranged a meeting with the seller at Target. He brought his two friends with him, and they brought a pellet pistol with them.
That's not good.
Cockpit reportedly got out of their car with the pellet gun, which is when two people in a gray-black sedan opened fire.
See, that's why you don't do things like that. You never try to do. You don't know who you're dealing with.
In addition, I'm not laughing. I mean, it's not funny.
You don't do that.
This gets better. It doesn't get, I mean, better as in it just gets weirder. In addition to getting shot, one of the victims had his car stolen by the alleged shooters for good measure.
See?
So, oh my goodness.
See, you thought you were going to play the crook.
They obviously are dealing with professionals.
And you
here.
ran into some professionals.
Yeah.
That, you know, this is why cities all over the country, large and small, are now having what they call these safe zones.
Mm-hmm.
When you want to sell something, and you go to this area, and it's usually near or right next to a police station. So you go in that parking area, and you go in there and you exchange or sell items. It's called a safe zone.
Scranton, Wilkes-Barre.
Mm-hmm.
Remember, I said there were two names.
Two cities.
Yeah, Scranton, Wilkes-Barre.
Wilkes-Barre is one city.
I don't want to get it confused with North Wilkesboro.
No. Barre.
Right.
And Scranton.
Scranton / Wilkes-Barre. The Rail Riders is the name of that team. I knew it was a two-city name. All right. So that's tough there for Vandy. The school has not yet commented on the shooting. And Chase Elliott, Hendrick Motorsports announced today it has extended Chase Elliott's contract through 2022. Previous contract ran through 2018. He signed with Hendrick back in 2011 at the ripe old age of 15. He is sixth in the Cup standings heading into this weekend's race at Daytona. He was the Cup Rookie of the Year last season after 10 top 5 finishes and 17 top 10s. His best finish this season is second at Michigan. So he's still looking for that first win, but it's bound to come. The ACC today, you know, it's slow when people use this as news, when they give you the names of the players who are coming to the ACC kickoff or the SEC media days. Woo! It's big news. Clemson is sending Tyrone Crowder and Christian Wilkins, offensive lineman, defensive lineman. They'll be representing Clemson. Let's see who'll be the most interesting people there. DeAndre Francois, quarterback from Florida State. He'll be there. He'll be interesting. Derwin James. His injury last year, if I'm not mistaken, really upset the apple cart at Florida State. Isn't he the multi-position safety? Mm-hmm. Kind of plays all over the place, but got hurt.
There's a wonder Francois is upright. Some of the hits he took holding the ball too long.
Louisville's got a good pair. Lamar Jackson.
Okay, Heisman Trophy. You got to bring him. I mean, the ACC would have flagged Petrino if they didn't bring the Heisman Trophy winner with him.
And one-time USC commitment, Jair Alexander. He's a good player. See, that's the guy, that's a corner that South Carolina could really have used. He is a ball hawk.
Now, remember, we always remember the guys that do well. All the rest of them that left, we don't care about. So then you extrapolate that and say, every time somebody leaves the team, they do good. Not really.
Let's see. Bradley Chubb will be there from NC State, and Jalen Samuels, two important players for the Wolfpack. Let's see here. Virginia sending people we don't know. Yeah, it's pretty much it for the highlighted players, I guess. There you go. That's coming up in July, right after the SEC Media Days. We'll have both of those events covered for you. I'll be at SEC Media Days. And Jarmart will be at the ACC kickoff. He can't wait to hang out with the ACC boys. Back in a moment.
Give him a great big kiss. Mwah!
We are back. It is Sports Talk, South Carolina Radio Network. Your final word in sports every night in South Carolina. Most informed, most educated, most knowledgeable word in sports every night in South Carolina, Monday through Friday. Phil Kornblue, the Professor Tom Hayes, and Jared Rogers-Martin, 800-956-7266. If you want to chime in with a comment, question, observation, it's that kind of slow time of the year now as we approach the 4th. The 4th is always the deadest time of the year. It's a dead period in recruiting. Coaches finally get to go on vacation, as do we. Actually, I'll be gone Thursday, Friday of this week. Our old buddy Rickson Lane is going to sit in with the guys on Thursday, Friday. Mm-hmm. So look forward to having our pal Rickson in the hot seat for a couple of nights. But we do have recruiting for you. And, of course, the big story of the day, Zamir White is going to be a Georgia Bulldog. And a lot of people expected that. The Georgia Lapdog media people were slobbering all over themselves. If it's a little wet in the Laurinburg, North Carolina area, it's not because of rain. It's all the slobber that the internet people that cover Georgia left behind from this announcement. They think it's the greatest thing since I don't know what's good in Athens since the latest bar
Since
opened in
REM.
Athens.
Last Resort Cafe, the
Mhm.
Arches.
Since REM.
My favorite bar, Max Canada. Although that's probably not the right answer. It's a very not great bar. I just like it.
Did we ask your opinion about bars
You
in
said
Athens?
you said what's great about Athens, and as the person who spent most years
look,
in Athens, I decided that I was going to give you my 2 cents.
I see nothing. I see no redeeming value in Athens. I mean, I go to the game there every other year.
Mhm.
Okay. The streets are always packed with drunk students. The campus is trashed up by the students. The only thing you see are huge fraternity houses. Do they even have academic buildings there?
Yes.
And then you go to Sanford Stadium, and I'll give you Sanford Stadium is one of the most beautiful
You
settings.
haven't walked around the Georgia
There we
campus
go.
on
I'm
a
kidding.
non-game day?
My brother went to Georgia. I
Where
spent
the
many-
church
many
is,
days
so
at Georgia.
come the people, and Sanford Stadium is a very nice stadium.
It is a beautiful
They've had
stadium.
over the years. They've had a good. They've developed what John Martin, a couple of good bands out there. The music scene there is pretty good.
Yeah, but
Wouldn't you agree?
They don't have Hootie.
Oh, yeah, they got Reptar coming out of Montreal, B-52s, Neutral
REM.
Milk Hotel,
Wasn't
REM.
REM there too?
REM's there.
Yeah.
Mhm. Any of them have a channel on XM like
Zac
the Beatles
Brown
do?
Band.
They don't. They don't have a channel on XM like the Beatles do they? Do they have an Elvis channel? Call me when they get to that level, and I'll pay attention to them. Okay. Until you get your own channel on XM,
No,
you're
but
nothing.
You're
here's
going to
the
hate on the
deal.
B-52s. That's
I love groups that are right there at the precipice because everybody doesn't have a taste for them. I'm a snob in that way.
Well,
I don't like everybody to like my music.
the thing about Mr. White here, but I take issue with a little bit. I'm not. You got to be careful here because you don't want to criticize a high school kid.
Yeah, really. He'll come back at you.
And I'm not really. But come on.
But he wouldn't take your phone calls.
No, I don't care about that. But he has this announcement thing today, and you got media there to cover it.
Mm-hmm.
And he announces he gave a nice little brief talk. He seems to be a quiet kid. Everybody says he's a great kid. I have no doubt about that. And gives a little thank you talk. He goes over to a table where there are 5 hats on the table. I knew it. That Clemson hat they put on there was a Clemson baseball cap. I mean, nobody picking Clemson puts a Clemson baseball cap on.
And the only thing he could see with it was Omaha written on the back of it.
Well, I don't know, but it didn't see the
Okay.
back of it, but it had the Clemson baseball C, not the
Okay.
Tiger paw
Right,
on it.
exactly.
He had Georgia cap, Alabama cap, Clemson, North Carolina, and Ohio State. And he just went over and he picked up the Georgia cap. He didn't mess with any others, just picked up the Georgia cap, plopped it on his head. And then the coach, I think, or maybe it was the superintendent or somebody said, he's not taking any questions. That's it. We're done. He's going to go have, relax with his family, not taking any questions. And he also put on Twitter, that he had committed to Georgia and respect my decision and understand that I will not be participating in interviews. So, this is supposed to be one of your glory days as a youngster when you announce your college decision. And why the reticence to take questions about your decision?
Well, the thing that you got to understand is if you want to be successful, and part of being a success these days is a little bit of celebrity.
Well, if you're going to play the media
you have to
game,
learn.
if
You have to. No, I was about to say you have to learn to do interviews now
Mhm.
because when you get to Georgia, guess what's going to happen?
you're going to have to talk.
Unless you play for Muschamp, and then that first year he'll let you give a break. But now everybody has a microphone in front of Jake Bentley.
Well, I will say that he's a quiet kid. I only
Uh-huh.
talk. I don't think I've ever talked to him. I have talked to his coach, and he said it's a tremendous character kid. I'm not questioning
Mhm.
that. And he's a quiet kid. But when you make this kind of announcement and you have a press if you didn't want to take questions, then just put it on Twitter
Yeah,
and say, I'm not taking questions. Thank
Mhm.
you. Respect my decision. That seems to be the new thing with these kids now. Anytime they want to announce a short list or a decision, respect my decision, no questions, please. Da da da. Like, okay, fine and dandy. But if you're going to have a press conference and you're going to invite the media to come to it, then you should be available to take a few questions and give a reaction.
Thank you.
To the phones we go, 800-956-7266. Down to John's Island. And Tony, welcome into Sports Talk tonight. How are you?
I'm doing great. How are you, Corn?
Good, man. Good.
I got a question for you. You mentioned the Heisman Trophy winner a few minutes ago.
Yes.
And I'm wondering, what I've always argued with the fact that they handed out way too soon. And if they would wait to hand out the Heisman after all the bowl games are over, then it probably would be a different outcome, especially this past year.
That's precisely why they don't do it. It's a regular season award. Those who do great things at the end of the postseason, they will get their trappings at that. But it's a regular season award, and they actually do not want the postseason to affect what they're voting on in the regular season.
Well, I think you don't even have to do that. I think that the opportunity to vote is made too early.
Mm-hmm.
So what they need to do is take the opening of voting, and instead of allowing you to start voting in, I'm not even sure, I think we get our ballot and our information to vote like in October or something like that. Just wait and send it out. It's all done over the internet. It's all done via computer. So it's not something that has to go through the mail or anything like that. It's instantaneous. So just say, look, the earliest you can vote is, I would say, the weekend of the Army-Navy game before, and that is, let me think now.
That's before the championship.
Is that before the championship games or after?
Before.
You sure?
I'm almost sure.
No, I think it's the weekend
after.
Yeah. So I would actually say, include the championship games as well, and go right up to Army-Navy game, the Army-Navy weekend. You have the end of the regular season, which is Thanksgiving weekend for most teams.
Yes.
Okay. Those leagues that have championship games play them the next week. But then the Big 12 has some regular season games that weekend as well, because they don't have a championship. Right. I think they're going back to a championship.
Yeah, they let them decide.
But you used to have Oklahoma and Oklahoma State would be the same day as the ACC, SEC Big Ten championships.
Yeah, so what they're going to do,
and then the Army-Navy game was the last game of the season the next weekend. So I would open up voting. I tell you when I would open up voting. Would open up voting on the Sunday after the championship games, and I would close voting by, well, let me think now, is the Heisman announcement the day of the Army-Navy game? I think it is. That might be too tight a window if you're going to announce it that next weekend, because you got to let people know and they got to make plans, but maybe not. Maybe just have a window from that Saturday night to say that Wednesday. You can get it compiled. Unless the Russians interfere with the voting, you should have no trouble getting it compiled.
Putin will win it.
You know what? I think that's what cost Deshaun Watson. I think the Russians changed some of the votes, to be honest with you. Thanks for your call. Back in a moment.
I said the king's in the building. Tell me how you feeling. Yeah, I said the king's in the building. Tell me how you feeling. Yeah, I said the king's in the building. Tell me how you feeling.
All right, time to get to the recruiting updates here tonight on Sports Talk. Thank you for the walk-up music there, Jarmar. That would be great walk-up music for any baseball player coming to the plate. You know, it's all quiet. Now batting, the left fielder,
And
Joe
the
Smith.
King's in the building.
I'll say the King's in the building.
And guess what?
Yeah.
If I'm on the mound,
Uh-huh.
first pitch,
You buzzing his tower?
I'm buzzing the tower, right? Right.
All right, let's go to recruiting. Offensive lineman Jovan Gwynn of Charlotte, short list USC, Duke, NC State, has an invite to the opening this week in Beaverton, Oregon. He'd hoped to make his decision before going west on Friday. Now he's not sure he can do that. He also thought about announcing at the opening. Now he's not sure he can do that either. He says, I think I'm going to wait. I'm not sure. I go to Oregon Friday. I was thinking about making my decision up there, but I think I'm going to wait. I'm not sure yet where I want to go. If I was to do good at the opening and I felt comfortable with certain schools, then I would make my decision there, he said. He was at a USC camp earlier this month. Since then, he's been in touch with USC coaches, and they are impressing upon him the fact that they need offensive linemen. But NC State and Duke are telling him the same thing as well. And he likes the atmosphere at all three schools. He said actually NC State might be making the strongest recruiting push for him at this point, being recruited as a guard. As we mentioned, running back Zamir White of Laurinburg, North Carolina, today announced a commitment to Georgia, picking the Bulldogs over Clemson, Alabama, and North Carolina primarily. Made his announcement in front of a gathering of the media at his high school gym. He did not talk with reporters after the announcement. He was Clemson's top running back target for this class. The last two seasons, White rushed for 3,800 yards and 67 touchdowns. And he is a good-looking specimen as a running back prospect. Defensive end Dorian Gerald of Florence and College of the Canyons Junior College in California announced a top 5 list last night. USC, Tennessee, Louisville, Florida, Georgia. Boy, Georgia's going to run short. Going to run short in the cash category here with all these various top prospects that they're trying to get. He visited USC and Tennessee unofficially earlier this month. He has an official visit to Louisville set for September 16th. And a couple of other quick notes for you in recruiting. On this Tuesday afternoon, we have an offer by Clemson to 2019 receiver R.J. Henderson out of Richmond, Texas, and 2019 defensive end Latrell Jean of Lakeland, Florida, plans to visit USC the end of July. That's what we got for you on this Tuesday. Be sure to check out our recruiting regularly on our website, SportsTalkSC.com, and on Twitter, use the hashtag STRecruiting.
You know, I really would have, just like any football fan, you almost like to go in the lab and play mad scientist. I have this feeling I wish that White would have committed to Clemson just to see if he's this tremendous running back, how they would have had to augment the offense or switch it a little bit to make sure he is the bell cow. I would love to see how that would happen.
Yeah. Well, Clemson did all they could with him as far as getting him on campus and making him a priority. They offered him about 2 years ago. They've been on him a long time. And you look at the situations that are out there. I mean, Clemson's is really as good as any in terms of course, when you're a player like this guy's supposed to be, you don't really worry about the competition because you believe that you're going to go in and get your snaps. But Clemson's running back position, unless somebody steps up this year, Tavian Feaster, C.J. Fuller, Adam Choice, Travis Etienne Jr., those are going to be your primary running backs at Clemson. Unless somebody emerges as that next great running back, it would be open. Now, Georgia's position is going to be open because they're losing their two top guys after this season. But Georgia, the one thing that Georgia had going for it, and you can't argue with this, Clemson does run the ball a good bit in its offense. There's no question about that. They may run it more this year because, well, that doesn't impact White. They may run it more in the future because of what's going on with their quarterback situation. But Georgia does have a commitment to running the football. You know, they've had that. They've had that for a long, long time. I mean, if anybody around here is still committed strongly to a running game and to an I backfield with a true fullback leading the way, it's Georgia.
And sometimes 2 and sometimes 3 tight ends.
Oh yeah,
sets.
yeah. They still believe in that kind of old school, which I like. I like that. That style of football. They don't run. Jarmark could better answer this than I, because he saw Georgia a lot more. But I mean, they don't really spread it out very often and go 4 and 5 wide, do they?
They don't. But to be honest, I was watching more Clemson and South Carolina than I did Georgia last year.
Yeah. But in your experience with the Dogs over the years,
well, I mean, my experience. I mean, the offense would change with Kirby Smart.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you even go back to Mark Richt, and they still were a tight end fullback tailback offense.
I mean, even
they?
Arthur Lynch. You know, you go back to all these different tight ends. I mean, even in this year, tight end was a big player for them, more so than wide receivers as of late.
The tight end has always been a big part of Georgia's offense.
Oh yeah, because for whatever reason, especially when they come to the Palmetto State, it seems that South Carolina and Clemson have still not learned how to cover the tight end.
I know.
That's why they use them so much. And of course, you got your linebackers up near the line of scrimmage, because you're trying to your first priority, especially in college football, is they always tell you to stop the run. So when that tight end, just engages maybe in a phantom block and then just goes out, they're usually pretty wide open when they get there. But you're getting back to what you're talking about with Clemson's running backs. When he committed to Clemson, I was thinking, Tavian Feaster has all this speed. And it looked like, at least in the offense Clemson ran with number 4 at quarterback, you almost saw him as a slot receiver, because the little I've seen of him, he is a tremendous receiver coming out of the backfield. He just looks like the slot guy for Clemson when they go 4 and 5 wide. So I thought him more of as a slot receiver than actually playing from the running back position. And, of course, you can also use him in that speed sweep anyway, which in Clemson's offense is sometimes a 2-inch pass when they just go in front of the quarterback. So I see Tavian Feaster being used a lot of ways. They
should. I mean, if he can show that he's worthy of getting the work and picking up all the little nuances to the offense, and that includes what we so often never talk about when it comes to a running back. We talk about his running, we talk about his pass receiving skills, but his blocking.
Oh, yeah.
How well do you pick up the rush? That's so important. And that's a lot of times why a running back does not get snaps. It's because he has not mastered the craft of picking up the blitz. And, they're going to leave their quarterback back there to get smashed because the guy doesn't know how to protect properly. So it's going to be at Clemson very a lot of fun to watch what happens there on the offense, how it develops, who emerges as the leader at quarterback, and who becomes the guy if they do have a guy or just go by committee at running back. By the way, the opening begins this week, Friday, out at Beaverton, Oregon, the Nike headquarters.
Yes.
David Hood from TigerNet is going out there. A lot of Clemson influence out there and some USC influence as well. And he'll be joining us on Thursday and Friday nights from Beaverton, Oregon. I think we've got him penciled in for 6:30, so we'll bring you some color and information from out on the West Coast, the Northwest Coast up in Oregon, and he'll tell you what he sees and who's doing what and whatever rumors he might be hearing out there regarding USC and Clemson. All right, so that'll be coming up latter part of the week. Top of the hour break. Got a busy second hour. Carrie Tharp. We're also going to be visiting with a friend of ours from Houston who knows a thing or two about the state of South Carolina and the people out there in Houston. We'll be back. That's what they call me. God. Oh. Gilmore did write me back. His mother apparently is about to die. Two, one. Clemson missed out on its top running back target for the 2018 class when on Tuesday, Zamir White of Laurinburg, North Carolina, announced his commitment for Georgia. He also had Alabama and North Carolina on his final short list. Defensive end Dorian Gerald out of Florence and the College of the Canyons Junior College in California announced a top 5 of USC, Tennessee, Louisville, Florida, and Georgia. He's been to USC and Tennessee. He has an official visit to Louisville set for September 16th. Offensive lineman Jovan Gwynn of Charlotte has USC, Duke, and NC State on his short list. He's trying to decide if he wants to make a decision in the next few days or wait until later in the summer. Phil Kornblut, South Carolina, Radio Network Sports.
Don't stop now. More sports talk is on its way. Listen to the final word in sports all across the state with your host, Phil Kornblut.
And we're back. Hour number 2, Sports Talk, South Carolina Radio Network on this Tuesday night from downtown Columbia. Phil Kornblut and the Professor Tom Hayes. Coming up, Kerry Tharp, a little early, 7:20 tonight. We'll get his take on the weekend race at Sonoma and how things went there and what's happening around Darlington and what to look forward to this weekend at Daytona. Then at 7:30, we'll be joined by Will Pelagic, who is with SB Nation. I've been on his show before in Houston, and Will's been with us before as well. He used to work in Missouri, and I think we took some barbecue off of him once in a wager between on the Gamecocks and the Tigers out there a couple of years ago. So he's going to join us tonight and update us on things with Deshaun Watson and Jadeveon Clowney and Nuke Hopkins there in Houston. And, gosh, the Astros have the best record in baseball, I think, still. And he's got some thoughts on what's happening here in South Carolina as well with the coaching situation. He's very much in tune with things in college baseball and basketball and football. He does a show for SB Nation, and so he's got his hands into a lot of different things.
You know, the Astros is, I guess, for people just looking into baseball, probably the last team that we could probably say did the NBA thing, and they just totally tanked. And then they got all these young prospects, and now, woo, look at them now. And plus they changed leagues.
Yeah. Well, listen, that they took their lumps, but they also acquired a bunch of good young talent.
Yeah, that's what they did.
And
I
they
think
have
they
developed
lost
it.
2 or 3 years straight of losing over 100 ball games.
Yeah.
I think. Yeah.
All right, the College World Series game tonight is not going to start until 8 o'clock. I don't know what it is that ESPN is boring us with until they can get to 8 o'clock. Let's see. They just got a regular boring Sports Center on now on the main channel. What's on the Deuce?
Probably another boring show. What they probably did was they're thinking, let's build a drama because this could be the last baseball game of the season. You want to shove it further into prime time.
I'm sure that's not why it is. I'm sure there's some self-indulging reason why they are doing this. But anyway, they won't get to first pitch tonight until 8 o'clock Eastern time. Last night, it was Florida taking a 1-0 lead in the series. They win it 4-3, got off to the early lead, and then held on as LSU fought back. So Florida 51-19, LSU is 52-19, and Florida can win its first baseball national championship with a win tonight. They'll have to beat LSU's all-time winningest pitcher, Jared Poche, if they're going to do that. Last night, however, they got that first win. Very important. The percentages over the years have favored the team that wins the first game in the series. So that's got to make Kevin O'Sullivan feel pretty good about things. And he said after last night's win that things just worked out the way they wanted them to.
The way we kind of hoped it would. Brady would go deep into the ball game, and we wouldn't have to extend Michael Burns, so he'd still be available tomorrow. Thought Brady was outstanding. Obviously, the one inning with, I think, 2 runners on with nobody out and struck out the side was huge. And they get 12 strikeouts tonight through 7. I think it was probably similar to Alex Vallejo's start the other day, where there was some tense moments where he had to make some big pitches, and I think he battled and gave it all he had. And Michael Byrne did what Michael Byrne always does: throw strikes, change speeds. And I think the key play there obviously was when we got Smith at second, the relay play, and then coming back with Reed, the pinch hitter, when he fell behind 3-0. And then obviously, offensively, the big hit was obviously Jonathan India's double to center field with 2 runners on, and Austin Langworthy, hits the ball in a gap. We bunt him over, we get him in, and then we hit a short fly ball in foul territory there with 2-0 count, and ended up scoring a run there too. So once again, we do just enough to stay ahead. I think it's maybe our 20th one-run win of the year. I don't know how many, but there's been quite a few. And it's been a long time since we played LSU, and it's a really good lineup. I forgot how good it was. You're sitting there in the 9th inning, and you got Papierski leading off, and he can go yard at any point from either side of the plate, which he's already done in this tournament, and he's hitting in the 8-hole. So it's a very deep lineup. Talk to the guys tomorrow. Obviously, there's a long way to go in this thing. We're facing the winningest pitcher in LSU's history, which is saying a lot because there's been so many good pitchers that have come through that program. So, our players will be prepared to know that this is a long way from being over, and we're going to have to play better tomorrow. We were fortunate enough tonight to win a one-run game, but we're going to play better tomorrow for sure.
Okay, we'll open up for questions for the student athletes only first, okay? And we'll start right here.
Yeah, Kevin Brockway, Gainesville Sun. Sully, who do you start tomorrow? Have you decided yet, or what's your thought process?
Yeah, it's probably Tyler. He threw really good last weekend against Wake Forest, another good hitting team, and he's got a really good arm. So we're going to ride it. He's been really good for the last 3 weeks, and we're going to run him out there and see what he can do for us.
Just this, I know that, you obviously haven't finished yet, but just the significance of this, historically first college World Series finals win, and just what it means kind of for this program kind of going forward.
We're here to win this thing. That was the message that, and we'll talk more about it tomorrow. We're going to have to play better if we want to win this thing. And this thing is not it's not nearly over. We got 6 hits tonight. Brady had to pitch his tail off. We have a freshman going tomorrow against the winningest pitcher in LSU's history. We're going to have to play better. So is it exciting to have game 1 under the belt? Yeah, but tomorrow we're going to have to play better. And that's the message. And we're going to have to swing the bats a little bit better, and we're going to have to get to Poche in the first part of the ball game, and we're going to have to get a special start from Tyler. And he's certainly capable. But, we're close, but we haven't finished. We haven't crossed the line yet.
All right, thoughts of Kevin O'Sullivan after the win last night, not counting his championship before it's hatched. Didn't realize that's his first win in the championship series. After, I guess, he went 0-2 against South Carolina, so that's this is his second trip to the championship series. His first win has them in position to win the championship tonight. Paul Maneri from LSU, of course, he's going for his second national at LSU and the school's 7th. And speaking after last night's loss, he said, great close game, just didn't go their way.
A great game. It was a close game, great game. My feelings are that we went up against who I believe to be maybe the best pitcher I've seen in the SEC for an opponent since I've been the coach at LSU. He reminds me so much of Aaron Nola. It's scary. And he's really good. I mean, he was a tough pitcher. I know he had a lot of strikeouts, but I thought our guys battled him. I don't know how many hits we had against him. It had to be about 7 or 8, 9 maybe. I don't know. 9 hits against him. And, we had a couple of situations that we, maybe if we'd have been able to take more advantage of it, maybe we could have even overcome it. But when you think about the fact that we went up against one of the best pitchers in the country, I think the guy will be the first pick in the draft next year. And we were having to piece it together with our bullpen guys. It was amazing to me that we were right there and had a chance to win. Our kids played their hearts out. I think we played well in most areas. We had a couple of mistakes and probably hurt us a little bit. But our kids left it all out there on the field, played their hearts out, and we just came up a little bit short tonight. It's comforting to know that we still have Jared Poche going tomorrow, fully rested. And if we're fortunate enough to win tonight, that we've got Alex Lang over by a long stretch. We're excited about playing tomorrow. Hopefully we can have a little bit more luck on our side tomorrow.
Okay, there you go. A little bit of a preview from the head coaches of where things stand. And I'd love this thing to go 3, just to take it to you think so? You think you like LSU tonight? Okay. We will hit a break, and KT, Kerry Tharp, will join us on the other side. Don't go away. Just taking a look at the Clemson recruiting board that we have, with the Tigers missing out on Zamir White, running back out of Scotland County in Laurinburg, North Carolina. What is still available for the Tigers? TJ Pledger out of IMG Academy in Bradenton, Florida would be one possibility. He's had a Clemson offer, and he has been committed to Oklahoma, but might still be looking around. And another possibility of a player they've looked at, Devin Lawrence, who's also a safety, can play safety out of Wake Forest, North Carolina. That's Dexter's younger brother. That'd be a possibility. Jameer Smith out of Sanford, North Carolina, another one that Clemson has looked at and evaluated. Those would be some that come to mind. Now, they could always try and peel away somebody who's committed elsewhere, like Lynn J. Dixon or Michael Salahuddin, guys that they have recruited. Master Teague, another guy they have recruited. Tay Pruvens. Or they may just sit pat, not worry about signing a running back in this class, since their class is so small. Okay, let's we're going to play the walk-up music for KT, or we're going to go dry to it. Of course, we got to have his walk-up music. The boss. You. Hey, you ever thought about having Springsteen come and do a concert before the Bojangles Southern 500?
Well, we ought to do that, Phil. I tell you, though, I'm not sure if we got enough zeros on our check to be able to handle the boss. But certainly, I love that walk-up song that you play. It's terrific. I think the first time I was ever on your show, when I was in this capacity, you started playing that, and I just about lost it. I said, "Oh my goodness, I got my own song."
Yeah,
yeah. But no, that is a cool song, and we appreciate you playing it.
Absolutely. All right, this past weekend, Sonoma, and I really enjoy watching races out there. I know you were out there many years when you were on the tour with the NASCAR guys, and it's such a beautiful countryside. And I was looking at the seating and how they've got the stands built into the hills, and you can really get a nice view, it looks like, of a lot of the track, and you see good racing throughout.
You really do, Phil. It might be the most beautiful racetrack in NASCAR, and just the elevation, the scenery, where you are in that particular part of the country. You're just moments away from wine country, Napa Valley, really just less than an hour from San Francisco, and the racing there is outstanding. Road course racing has really taken on a new dynamic, I'd say, the last decade or so, and it's become really some of the more popular racing in NASCAR. And Sonoma does a great job. Their president out there, Steve Page, is terrific. It's really almost like a carnival, state fair type atmosphere that they have on race weekend. And the fans come out, and they just do a great job.
So, with Harvick winning, that's 11 drivers with at least one win. I tell you what, I think people are kind of rooting to see if you can get 16 different winners.
Oh, I think they are. I think that would be great for the sport. That's why this format for the playoffs was developed a few years ago, to reward winning and to make it competitive like this. If you win, you get in the playoffs, and that's how it is in all the other sports. You win in advance. Jim Valvano made that famous years ago. But so with Harvick winning, I think that checks one off at least half a dozen out there that are capable of winning, including 3 of the 4 drivers at Joe Gibbs Racing that haven't won yet. Denny Hamlin, Matt Kenseth, and certainly Kyle Busch. You look at Dale Earnhardt Jr. He's got an opportunity this weekend at Daytona to get to victory lane. Over at Ganassi, Jamie McMurray's been running extremely well, and he's excellent at Indianapolis. He's also very good at Daytona. And, Clint Boyer's been running well for Stewart Haas Racing. Eric Jones over there for Furniture Row has had a couple top 5. So, we still have a road course left at Watkins Glen. So who knows? We may get up to 16, 17 winners. That'd be cool.
Do you feel that this sort of balance throughout the garage is good. Not having one team gobble up 6, 7, 8 wins at this point, but have the victories kind of spread around.
Oh, I think it's absolutely terrific to have the victory spread out like this. I think it just goes to show, the balance as you mentioned, the balance in the garage area, the teams that have risen now to become stronger. Let's look at Ford Motor Company, for instance. A year or two ago, they were just not doing a great job, probably, to be honest with you. And all of a sudden, I think they got their heads together and did some things. And of course, they got Stuart Haas Racing over there running the Ford logo. So I think Ford has done a super job. And certainly I got to look at Chip Ganassi Racing this year as a team that has really stepped forward and probably having one of their better seasons with Kyle Larson and Jamie McMurray. And so I think it's great when you have a lot of different winners like this. NASCAR is a sport where, you don't have a really home team or an away team to cheer for. You have drivers to cheer for. So I think, as many fans as there are in NASCAR, you can go to a NASCAR track and you see T-shirts and memorabilia from just about all the drivers, and so that people are wearing. So I think it's important to spread the wealth and let as many people win as possible.
One of the cool things about Sunday, cool and not cool, disappointing that Fox is over for the year now with their coverage, but they debuted the helmet cam on in the 10 car on what's her name, and Danica, yes, sorry. And I'm a little surprised. First of all, the view was fantastic. I'm a little surprised it took this long to come up with that idea. What'd you think about it? Is it something NBC is going to pick up?
Well, I thought it was great innovation. The people at Fox, they do a super job. They've been in the sport a long time, I think since 2001 when they first started televising our races. And, their producer over there, Barry Landis, is very creative. Their upper management is very innovative and aggressive. I thought it was a great concept they had. They were the ones really that kind of started the low angle camera angle that you would see along the track. And so, I'm not sure if that's going to be in NBC's wheelhouse. I tell you what, though, NBC in a short period of time has really impressed me with what they do for our races, starting in the broadcast booth. Rick Allen, Steve Letarte, Jeff Burton, top notch. They do a super job every Sunday or Saturday night or every Sunday. And so I wouldn't be surprised, as competitive as it is in the broadcasting business, for them to maybe, go with this helmet cam as well. We'll see if that's something that happens. But I thought it was a great move, and I thought it made for some interesting camera angles.
Well, let's face it. One thing that really helped NASCAR take off was putting a camera in the car. I think that was first done, back at the Daytona 500 many years ago. It took people where they've never been before, and now this view gives you a view that you've never seen before. I would love to see that view, say, at Darlington or Daytona or Talladega. The view from is looking. Any feedback from the Patrick camp about how it went? Was it bothersome? Did they even notice that she had it on?
Everything I heard was positive. I'm sure that was something that was probably, if not tested, simulated before they put it on to make sure that there wasn't any obstruction or it wasn't going to, deter her vision. And so everything I saw on social media and hearing reports out of their camp was that it was positive. And I think this is, like you said, there's so many different things that NASCAR can bring to a sports fan, especially those that are watching at home. Being in that type of view, it'd be like, Tom Brady having a camera on his helmet and being able to see what he sees when he's surveying the coverage out there. So I think NASCAR has just scratched the surface. There's a lot of possibilities out there, and I got to applaud them for trying to explore some of them.
KT, as always, a pleasure. Have a great weekend. I guess it's a holiday weekend with the 4th coming up, and we'll talk to you. Well, not on the 4th, is on Tuesday, so we'll catch you later in the week next week.
Okay, sounds good, Phil. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, KT.
We got you in, Will.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Awesome. Everything coming through clearly?
Yeah, I'm hearing him. Are y'all hearing him? All right, talk again.
Yo.
You hear me? You hear me well?
I do, Phil. How are you?
Hear me well, Will.
Everyone on
Will
the internet
Pelagic.
can hear us right now.
We've been practicing. Pelagic.
You did really very well with the open hour teas. I like that.
Yeah.
You don't look at the spelling of his name. You just look at the word logic and put pa in front.
Well,
of
I
it.
got to remember that.
That's the way you got to do it.
Yeah. That sounds good. All right, hang on. We'll come to you here in about 2 minutes.
I'm ready.
Thank you, bro. Okay, we're back. Sports Talk, South Carolina Radio Network from downtown Columbia. Let's head out to Houston, Texas via Google Hangouts. Welcome in our buddy Will Pelagic, who is with SB Nation, does a national sports talk show out of Houston. He's been kind enough to have us on with him out there. And Will has been with us before when he was in Missouri doing sports talk radio. I think we took a little barbecue off of him once. How are you, sir?
I'm good, Phil. How are you?
And we're doing great. Thank you for joining us so much. It's hard to believe that here in South Carolina we have such a strong connection to the city of Houston, but we do with all the talent you guys have gotten from here in South Carolina. What has been the feeling around the city and around the organization about the arrival of Deshaun Watson?
Well, I know that he originally had a real excitement around this city, and I think you kind of have to go back to even before the draft, especially when you were thinking about Tony Romo possibly making his intonations down here in Houston. And as we came to find out, Jerry Jones would rather die and sell the team away rather than actually have him join the Houston Texans. So once that kind of came out of the woodwork, the Texans had to go to plan B. They gave up a lot of capital to get him up there from the Kansas City Chiefs perspective. And of course, there are some things also that they did also to move up in the draft as well to get their quarterback. So I think once Kansas City made their move, the Texans needed to make theirs. And it was funny seeing the draft party. It was a very tame atmosphere because the Texans, having been in the playoffs, they were down pretty much in the first round of the draft. So there wasn't exactly a lot of excitement around that party. They had excitement excitement perked up and has perked up ever since. The unfortunate part is he's going up against an incumbent who has some local flair and local connection here to the city of Houston, and Tom Savage, having played at the University of Houston, and he's kind of been looked at as a local favorite in that realm. But I think those who at least are close to the Houston Texans and those who follow it as closely as they do know that Watson's the future of this program, if not immediately starting this year, certainly very, very shortly.
Well, it sounds like from what we've heard coming out of the coaching staff, from the head coach and others, they love him. They love his dedication to his craft. I think they realize they've got a kid who's not going to be out partying and trying to build up a social reputation. He's interested. Watson is. He's interested in winning the job and winning games and winning championships in Houston.
He is, and he looks the part. I mean, when you look at him on film, there are still things that he does and decisions that he makes. And again, it's hard to see because what we see is very, very little of him. But the one thing that the coaching staff has said is that he doesn't make the same mistake twice. And that's the important thing, I think, when you're talking about a guy who is trying to learn on the fly. And so much of the learning curve has been I guess not steepened, but almost made to be a little bit more because of the fact that now it seems like there's so much expectation put on these younger guys to be on the field sooner. It used to be once you were drafted, you would sit for a year and you wouldn't see the field. Now, with all the money that's being doled out towards these guys, there's a significant pressure to get the most out of your investment, especially when these rookie contracts are limited to 4 years plus a 5th-year option. So in that vein, there is probably an eagerness, I'd say, to get them on the field. But the one thing you have to remember about the Houston Texans is this is a team that believed that they were just a quarterback away from being a Super Bowl contender with the way that defense plays. You mentioned the South Carolina connection with Jadeveon Clowney, and obviously the sensational situation going on with DeAndre Hopkins. And they want to be able to utilize those guys in the best way. Maybe not putting a rookie quarterback right there right away is the best option, but I think the sooner that you can get him in meaningful situations, especially the preseason, and see what he has, they have to be able to turn him loose. And Bill O'Brien has said they don't feel like they have to limit him, which is a good thing.
Yeah. Speaking of Clowney, sort of started to come into his own last season after that injury-ridden season the year before. So I think you started to see in Houston what folks around here had been able to see for the better part of 3 years: his athleticism, his freakishness as a defensive end, his strength, his speed. I imagine the offseason has been to get better and to continue to get healthy and get J.J. Watt back as well and give the Texans that dynamic duo rushing in combination that will make their defense extremely dangerous.
It's interesting because it's funny. His arrival in Houston kind of coincided with my arrival. So not only did I get to see him play in college at Carolina, I've gotten to see him play every snap he's played here in the National Football League. And the interesting thing about last season is that it seemed like J.J. Watt being hurt almost helped him in a way, because with J.J. being on the sidelines, it kind of took a lot of the pressure off to kind of match J.J. I think a lot of what was in his mind was that he kind of had to match the mastery that J.J. Watt brings to the table. And you also have to kind of understand a little bit about J.J. Watt. This man gets more promotion around this town than any non-quarterback gets in any NFL city across the country, other than maybe Odell Beckham Jr. with the New York Giants. He's on every billboard across the city when it comes to he has a local food store that promotes him. He's on every television commercial. He's on multiple times a night. You see him on TV. It's certainly something. It would affect anyone. And I think once JJ kind of went into the shadows, he was able to kind of clear his head. And also, you have to think about the fact that you mentioned the injuries. This is the first time he's ever been fully healthy in the National Football League. And for the first time, you actually saw teams have to game plan against him and his ability. I think that the defensive coaches on the Houston Texans, including Mike Vrabel, the defensive coordinator who was newly named to that position this offseason, I think they're salivating at what they can do with both of those guys in multiple packages this season.
And of course, don't forget you got a guy who I love his name, Merciless.
Yes, Whitney Merciless. He's one of the real good guys on that team too. He's a great talker, and he's just a tackles machine. He's always around the football. You talk about a linebacker who has a nose for the football. You want to see that. Whitney Merciless is that guy.
Yeah.
Well, Will, tell me this. You know, you look at the Southern Division there, and you got a Colts team that seems to be losing direction and losing a lot of their veteran players. They still have Andrew Luck, but he's kind of struggled the last couple of seasons with injuries and maybe some decisions on third down. And then, you know, Tennessee is still trying to rebuild, as is Jacksonville, but you know, you got that mad scientist and Tom Coughlin down there. You know, they're not going to be down long, but Houston, if things click with Watson, does this team think they look like they can dominate the division with that defense for a few years to come?
Well, they've won the division the last 2 years, or at least they've been in the playoffs the last 2 years. And I think the interesting thing about these two, this decision that they have to make a quarterback is that they have some decisions they have to make on players coming up, including on DeAndre Hopkins. So I think that there's a very keen sense of they want to win now, and they want to be able to utilize as much as they can, especially if they can't get Hopkins re-signed because he's due for a new deal. And I think, too, there are a lot of people who will look at the Watson signing as much of a win-now move as possible because they did not get what they needed out of the quarterback position last year with Brock Osweiler. That was the only thing that limited them. And even when they went to Tom Savage, they got basically to a ceiling. So they want to try and burst through that ceiling. They want to be able to compete and contend in the postseason this year, and they will make whatever move is necessary to make sure that they can satisfy that win-now philosophy.
Talking with Will Pelagic from SB Nation in Houston. Going to talk a little football with him after the break, college football. I want to ask you quickly, other big thing happening in your city, the Astros, I imagine they've captured the imagination of the fans. Their best record in baseball at this point. Did anybody – I guess you saw it coming because they've gradually gotten better as the years have progressed from when they were at rock bottom. They've sort of rebuilt themselves.
Well, 15 was a big year for them. They got to the playoffs. They lost to the eventual world champion Royals. Last year was a bit of a setback. They had a lot of injuries. They made some big veteran acquisitions in the offseason. They brought in Carlos Beltran, Brian McCann, Josh Reddick, and they have a very good young core, especially on the left side of that infield with Alex Bregman, who you know from LSU fame, and, of course, Carlos Correa and Jose Altuve, who have been there now the past couple of years. And I find interesting the way this has gone for them. They need maybe another pitcher just because their pitching has had a lot of atrophy with injuries this season. But if they can get another starting pitcher, they are primed. They have the best run differential in the American League.
Real quick, and we'll come right back to you.
Sure. That's my fault, guys. I know we were up against it.
All right, we got 1 minute. Will?
Sure.
All right, back to Will Pelagic in just a moment. Couple of quick notes for you. Former USC receiver Christian Owens announced that he is going to set up shop at Georgia State. He will rejoin Sean Elliott there and try and get his career going again. University of Tennessee women basketball announced their upcoming schedule. I bring this up because the Lady Vols will play USC home and away this coming season. I think that's a little different. They had been playing just once. So apparently, according to the release from UT, the USC women and the Tennessee women will play twice in the coming season. Okay, I guess that's a little newsworthiness there. Back to Will Pelagic from SB Nation in Houston. So getting ready to crank up another college football season. I know that you cover college football from coast to coast and also keep a close eye on the SEC, and thus I'll ask you about South Carolina and your thoughts on the Gamecocks, where you might think they're going to finish up in the East. Can they make a run for the top? Today, Steve Spurrier predicted Florida would win the East, not Georgia. What do you think?
Well, it's interesting looking at the Gamecocks from 30,000 feet, and I find interesting some of the comments that came out of the Manning camp this week with regards to Jake Bentley. I really think that the offense is going to take a significant step forward this year. I think every year that Muschamp and Kurt Roper have been together, they've seen successful offenses with the exception of the one bad year. And I think that if you look at the way that these two can kind of mesh up and the kind of offensive talent, especially when you think about Deebo Samuel, you think about Dowdle coming back, I think that they can really put up some points. It's just a matter of whether or not the thinness of depth on the defensive side of the football, that's going to be the real key, whether or not South Carolina can manage that. I think you're not going to see a problem with them putting up points this year. 3 of their 4 road games are very, very tough when you think about the fact that they have to go to Georgia, they have to go to A&M, and they have to go to Tennessee, although Tennessee, Muschamp's always had Tennessee's number in his years, not only here, but also at Florida. So I think that game, if they win that game, that could be the telltale sign of whether or not this is a good year or a special year for the Gamecocks. I personally have them sitting in the 3-4 range because I'm not really that sold on anybody else outside of Florida or Georgia in the SEC. And I've been trying to bat down the Tennessee hype train for at least the past 2 or 3 years. I have not been high on Butch Jones or anything he's done at Tennessee at all. He lost a lot of talent. I think the year for them to do it was last year or the year before or any of these other years that people have said that they were going to be any good. And I think there's just too much atrophy going on in Knoxville. I think Butch Jones could be a dead man walking. I think especially if USC gets that head-to-head win on the 14th, I think they can be penciled in for 3rd in the SEC East.
Wow. Okay. Now Clemson coming off the national championship, and they lost a ton of people on offense. As we talked about Deshaun Watson, he was just one of, 4 guys from the skill position who will be in the NFL this coming season, or at least starting out. So they lost a ton of passing yards, receiving yards, and rushing yards. But that defense does come back for the most part. They do lose kind of their heart and soul in Ben Boulware, Carlos Watkins, Jadar Johnson on the back end, Cordray Tankersley at one corner spot. So they do lose some, but they've recruited so well. They have quality players set to step in. However, in your opinion, can Clemson successfully repeat, not necessarily winning the national championship, but repeat the repetition of getting to the playoffs for the third year in a row?
Well, we're going to get a very easy case study on how they look on September 9th when they face Auburn, and not necessarily that Auburn rivals, the kinds of games that they will have later on the season. See Florida State and see obviously what happens later on down the road, possibly in an ACC title game. I think that the key game is September the 9th, because we will see whether it's Kelly Bryant, whether it's Hunter Johnson, whoever is the starting quarterback for Clemson. You have to see them take that next step right away. So there'll be an early proving ground. I think you mentioned the defense. I'm really looking at Kendall Joseph to kind of step up and be that heart and soul, replacing Boulware. And, you mentioned the fact that there are skill position players who have left. There's still guys. CJ Fuller, you think about Hunter Renfro, the guy who caught the pass in the national championship game. There are guys still around there who can be contributors. They might not have the kind of cachet that they had at the end of the year with Clemson, but there's enough star power around there. I know that people like Florida State out of the gate, and I think they're more in suitable favorite, but all comes down to head-to-head November the 11th, and the fact of the matter is that game's in Death Valley. So I give Clemson more than a puncher's chance to repeat, at least in the conference.
Mm-hmm. Well, moving back to Texas, usually a new coach comes in, he's got a honeymoon period. We'll let him get himself straight. But the fans so hungry in Longhorn country. Does Tom Herman have a honeymoon period, or he could be cut off real quick?
The one thing that is bad about them is they have to play USC, the other USC in Southern Cal this year. So I think that's the one thing that, in my mind, they're not going to let him forget about that. And there are enough statement games. They play a murderous schedule this year. They have to take a long trip to West Virginia. They got to go to TCU. They got to play at Baylor. And I know Tom Herman and believe me, this city went absolutely bananas for what they did for the Houston Cougars this past year and a half, 2 years. I don't know if there's a quick fix there. They have a great guy with a cannon there in Shane Buechele. I saw him take his first collegiate snap at the Notre Dame game in person. I think that there's still a lot of holes that need to be filled, at least at skill position players. The offensive line needs some work, and also that defense. You think about what happened against Notre Dame. That was a microcosm of what happened the entire year, and I think that they need to find a way to at least eliminate some of that slippage. I don't think it's going to be necessarily a long-term situation, but Texas fans are going to have a lot more. Are going to need to have a lot more patience than they gave Charlie Strong.
Hey, Will, 30 seconds. CWS, Florida, LSU. You think Florida wraps it up tonight, or does it go to a third game?
I don't want to bet against Jared Poche. I can't, especially because LSU's got another guy also right behind him. I think you got to go all hands on deck tonight if you're LSU, because they got the horses to make it happen, certainly.
Yeah, Poche, Lang is ready to go if they need him, and they sacrificed a lower-level pitcher last night who gave them 3 good innings, and then he kind of lost it in that 4th inning.
Yeah, he fell apart, and the thing is, LSU, despite the fact that they made that happen, they were still in that game, and I feel that they have what it takes to make it happen, at least pitching depth-wise, more than Florida does.
And we'll see which team handles the pressure. Florida is right there on the verge of winning it. Do they seize up a little bit, and do the easy plays become more difficult? Or does LSU kind of crack under the pressure of having to win this game to stay alive?
18 to 22-year-old athletes, you can never, ever predict it. That's the one thing that makes that sport so magical and special.
Yeah. Hey, Will, thank you, man. We appreciate it very much. Have a great rest of your week and holiday, and we'll talk to you again soon.
We'll have to get some of that barbecue together, Phil.
You got it, my man.
Thanks,
Take
man.
care. Will Pelagic from SB Nation joining us from Houston here on Sports Talk.
LSU is the only baseball team I've seen, Corn, and you've seen it too, when they desperately need a win, that team comes out with a football mentality. They come out and they bumping heads and they clapping and going. And that crowd tonight, watch them take over TD Ameritrade. It's going to be purple. I know there's some Florida fans out there, but not as many of those people dressed in that purple and gold. So it's going to be interesting tonight. I really think the crowd is going to be at a fever pitch tonight.
All right. Britt McHenry. I think she's one of our favorites off ESPN. You know, she was let go back in April. She's now saying that she thinks her conservative views led ESPN to let her go. And there's more to that. Just thought I'd read the headline just so I could take another shot at ESPN.
I thought the Mouseers was sort of conservative too.
Hey, Britt, we have an open spot here if you're interested, and we'd love your conservative views, considering what used to sit in that chair. Kind of offset what was left behind and kind of what's still here. That will do it. Thank you, Pro. Thank you, Jarmark. Have a great night, everybody. We'll see you tomorrow.